Welcome back to the Arise interview. I'm Charles Anyegolu. Now, there have been more deaths over the weekend in Ivory Coast. There have been demonstrations and violence in places like Abidjan, Ouattara, Banana, and Ganoua, among other places. At least 5 people have been killed during clashes between government and opposition supporters in recent days. Tensions have been running high since President Alassane Ouattara announced he would run in the 31st of October presidential elections to seek a third term in office, a move many in the country believe is unconstitutional. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now by the African Affairs analyst and publisher of Africa Briefing, John Ofe-Ansah. Good to see you, John. It's been a while. Just before we came on air, I was watching you on the big screen, and I thought you were on fire. I could see smoke billowing out of your head, but then I realized you were vaping. But thank you very much indeed for joining us. I know you've been keeping across developments in Ivory Coast. Just bring us the latest that you're hearing from there.
Well, the latest is that the opposition, generally the public, Ivorian public, are rather, dismayed at Alassane Ouattara's decision to run for a third term. After the death of the late Prime Minister Amadou Coulibaly. And the question on most people's, when the story broke about a week or two ago, the story on most people's lips was, look, so don't they have any credible person, within the ruling party, to run instead of Alassane Ouattara standing for a third term? That's the question on everybody's lips. And people are rather disappointed that being, Alassane Ouattara, who is backed by the West, including France, should decide to go this route and go for a third term. So I'm not surprised that there's uprising of protests, violent protests in Abidjan and other cities in Cote d'Ivoire.
But I suppose the question, John, is how widespread are these protests? Because, we've also seen government supporters out on the streets. There have been clashes between the two sides. And I understand your Africa Briefing team and yourself have been looking into public sentiment and trust in government about this issue of running for a third term in Ivory Coast. What kind of picture have you built up of the public mood in Ivory Coast?
The opposition, the ruling party, Alassane Ouattara's party, is partly split. Don't forget, one of his major allies, Guillaume Soro, the 48-year-old Guillaume Soro, who used to be the Speaker of Parliament, fell out with Alassane Ouattara, right, and went into exile. In fact, the guy was tried in absentia and sentenced to a term in jail, right? He has to support it. So the ruling party in itself, right, Alassane Ouattara's party, is actually fractured. So the public swell of opposition, right, is more against Alassane Ouattara than for him.
So, in effect, many Ivorians view the move by President Ouattara as a violation of term limits set by the Constitution. I understand that latest research by non-partisan African institutions suggests that, in support of what you're saying, 8 out of 10 Ivorians don't want the president to run for a second term, and the distribution of those numbers is quite even across age groups and education levels and even urban and rural areas. So massive opposition there.
Yes, and we shouldn't forget that the majority of the Ivorian population is aged between 18 and 35. That is the median age in Cote d'Ivoire. So, and like I said earlier on, his former ally, Guillaume Soro, the ex-speaker who is in exile, has a lot of support. And in fact, his breakaway party has nominated him as the candidate to run against Alassane Ouattara, but he cannot do it because of fear of being thrown into jail if he returned to the country. So that also escalates the frustration, the anger amongst most of the youth. You see, and again, it is a worrying trend across the sub-region. In neighboring Guinea, the octogenarian Alpha Conde, the Guinean president, is running for a third term after a controversial amendment to the constitution to allow him to do so. And also, we should also look at the bigger picture. This instability comes amidst increasing jihadist activity in neighboring Burkina Faso in the north and Mali to the west. So it does not augur well, I mean, for the security stability of Cote d'Ivoire. And we shouldn't forget that 10 years ago, the country erupted into a bloody civil war between Gbagbo, the ex-president Gbagbo, and the current president Alassane Ouattara. So there is a fear that this situation might rather escalate into another bloody conflict in the country.
I mean, the argument, because we've obviously got to look at both sides, the argument from President Ouattara and his supporters is that the changing of the constitution back in late 2016 allows him to run again. So a new era under a new constitution, according to them.
Well, you see, the thing is, number one, his late Prime Minister, Amadou Coulibaly, should have run as a candidate. And Alassane himself actually said that he wasn't going to run again and that he would make way for a younger generation. So if the chosen candidate has passed away, right, is there nobody credible enough within the ruling party to stand in his place? That is the question. Okay. And again, during his tenure, I mean, there's been reports of deteriorating political freedoms in the country. I mean, Amnesty International last year raised alarm of arbitrary arrests and harassment, of journalists and bloggers, and in the last 5 years. And as we are talking now, there are about 15 journalists and bloggers who have been thrown into jail since last year. So this all doesn't. That is why the people are eager to see the back of him, irrespective of any constitutional changes or not.
Well, I mean, John, we've got about a minute and a half or so left in the discussion. I mean, could a counter-argument to all this opposition to President Ouattara be, why not just go to the elections? I mean, if Ivorians don't want Mr. Ouattara to stay on as president, then they'll simply vote for someone else. I mean, or is it the principle that makes it dangerous in this situation?
It is a principle, yes. And we mustn't forget that, we mustn't forget the power or the advantage of incumbency. And we live in, we're Africans, we live in Africa. And only a few incumbent presidents, have lost an election. So that is, one fear factor, that if he runs, Alassane Ouattara runs on October 31st, the chances of him winning far outweigh those of the opposition candidates. So this is one of the fears of the Ivorian people.
Okay, well, we appreciate your putting that in some perspective for us. John Ofei-Ansah is an African affairs analyst and the publisher of Africa Briefing. John, thank you very much indeed. Well, that's it for this edition of the Arise interview. Join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, London, and the US, bye-bye, and thank you for watching.